South African President Cyril Ramaphosa will visit the United States this week to meet with US President Donald Trump. The meetings will focus on strengthening bilateral ties, economic cooperation, regional security and global issues. Another issue that will be in the spotlight is the resettlement of 49 white Afrikaners deemed refugees by the United States. Well, the South African delegation includes International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola, Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshaveni, Trade Minister Parks Tau and Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen. Global Affairs Specialist Terence McNee joins us now just to chat a little bit about that. McNamee, at least. Apologies. On to our first question now. US-South African relations have been strained, particularly on this 49 Afrikaner refugees matter. Now, how do you think President Ramaphosa can counter the narrative on that?
Well, I think that, firstly, he should probably avoid trying to explain too much and simply say that we are two sovereign nations and we disagree on this issue. South Africa is a free country, and these Afrikaners are free to leave as they wish. But I think that to try and get into an explanation, you're already losing. I think he must sort of stick to the script, but then recognize that, again, two sovereign nations can disagree and then move on to, and not get sidetracked into negative issues, but try and look to the future on more positive ones.
Is Elon Musk likely to participate in the talks, particularly on the claims of those so-called anti-white policies in South Africa? And how is the president likely to navigate this?
Well, it's obviously very, very difficult because, we should lower our expectations for this meeting. South Africa is not going to be able to reset relations with the United States, which have been in decline, serious decline for some time. But hopefully, President Ramaphosa and the team will be able to do enough to put it on a different platform or simply arrest the slide in relations. And I think that we've seen enough of these meetings in the Oval Office to recognize that expect the unexpected. I mean, Trump is mercurial, to say the least. And the reality is that, things could get sidetracked. I mean, the last meeting in the Oval Office with Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, over half the meeting was occupied by issues that had nothing to do with Canada. But of course, the team should prepare for those two big issues, the Afrikaner refugee issue and, of course, the ICJ case.
Now, the issue of land reform is sure to be discussed as well, and this might be another point of contention between the two leaders. Should that be avoided or tackled head-on?
No, it should definitely not be tackled head-on in terms of at least the Oval Office. We should avoid, this is first and foremost a spectacle, right? And this is a show, and President Trump is the ultimate show person. So it's the back channel meetings that these issues need to be discussed in full. But absolutely, I mean, I think one of the things that will probably be raised is the Shoot the Boer song, whether that comes from one of Trump's supporting casts or whether it comes from one of the US media. And I think he really has an opportunity to address that and almost give President Trump a win, to essentially say that himself and the ANC totally oppose the singing of that song, but South Africa has a constitutional court and it has permitted it. But they will try and emphasize time and again that song should not be sung. And I think Trump will probably almost take that as a win. So they have to be very clever in which they get their narrative down and in which they engage in this dialogue.
President Ramaphosa's office has said that the visit will aim to reset the strategic relationship between the two countries. What areas do you think should be prioritized?
Well, again, leaving aside what's going to happen in the Oval Office, I certainly think that we just have to try and arrest the slide, right? So on the issues that South Africa is not going to budge on, so on the ICJ case, we need to understand that geopolitics is also changing a little bit. It would appear that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have had a bit of a fallout. So that may not be as volatile an issue as we imagine and may be able to get over that. But I think absolutely, in terms of trade, it would be great if they came out with some sort of framework agreement. Obviously, they're not going to be able to announce any kind of trade deal because those take months and years to finalize. But I think something on trade, something on critical minerals, and then obviously, the cherry on top would be if Trump says that, he is considering and now perhaps hopes to attend the G20 meeting. If sounds like that, if there's noises that are coming out of the meeting, out of this visit that sound like that, then I think President Ramaphosa will definitely take it as a win.
And then lastly, the AGOA agreement's due to expire in September this year. How critical is this visit in securing access to duty-free US markets? And of course, what challenges are likely to arise given Trump's protectionist trade policies?
Well, I think most experts have already given up on AGOA. They don't believe it will be renewed for South Africa. So we have to think, and that shouldn't be taken personal by South Africa, because President Trump has ripped up most trade agreements he has, whether it's with Europe or whether it was Canada or elsewhere. So we shouldn't focus too heavily on AGOA. But I think if we can get the bare bones of a new trade agreement in place, then that will be a win for South Africa. But again, I think the AGOA discussion has almost been superseded by what's happened in the last 4 months of the Trump presidency.
Thanks very much for chatting to us today. That was Global Affairs Specialist Terence McNamee.